Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host, coming to you on July 1st, 2026, as we move kind of headlong toward America's 250th birthday this weekend. If anyone is on X, there is an account called 1776 Live. Um, and it is retelling the story of the American Revolution in real time. Um, Basically, 250 years ago today, boom. And I don't know the guy who's doing it, but he's doing a really good job. He's getting a lot of attention, deservedly so. Um, the Declaration of Independence was signed, of course, July 4th, 1776. And Thomas Jefferson started writing that document sometime in mid June at a certain location in Philadelphia. And there's a variety of other things that were happening around this time. At the time of the Declaration, including things in Virginia and South Carolina and a variety of other places. So if you are on X, I would encourage you to follow 1776 Live, because we have a good couple years here where this story is going to be retold. And um, just a little encouragement there. And really, kind of the flip side of the American Revolution is this drama unfolding in the Democratic Party right now. And what's so interesting about the whole thing is, for the longest time, the media was playing up, a massive split coming on the right, that the establishment Republicans would have no time for Trump, and they don't, and they would cause a fissure, a schism, a a split in the grand old party, party of Lincoln, party of Reagan. And what we are seeing in real time here is the Democrats, basically put off by these communists and the Democratic Socialists of America, basically co opting their party as a means to gain power. And I'm not going to say much more about that. I have a column on that this Sunday. That's the only amount of a teaser I want to drop there. But I wanted to point out a couple things, because we had an election last night in Colorado. Another Democratic Socialist won in Denver. And there was an attempt to take out a U.S. Senator, which John Hickenlooper, which failed. And a couple things here. Um, First, James Carville. James Carville, the well-known former political advisor of Bill Clinton, um, got Bill Clinton in office twice. He is a mainstay for the media for getting comments about political things. But this, what I saw, was a uh, podcast, I believe, that he was doing with a veteran reporter somewhere. And Carville is beside himself. I mean, this guy has become kind of one of the faces of Trump derangement syndrome. But Carville is beside himself for what's going on in the Democratic Party, and he's like, I can't coexist with people who trash capitalism, and variety of other things that go along with the package that is now the Democratic Socialists of America. And James Carville is pretty candid in his remarks, and I am going to put a link to that in the description to the podcast. Would encourage you to catch that. I also have some Carville remarks that are in a different spot that will be dropping in my column on Sunday. And one of the most telling things that happened post New York State primary, where we saw three Zoran Mamdani endorsed candidates win in congressional races, and he also won a state senate endorsement as well, or someone he endorsed for the New York State Senate. And I mean, these people are radicals, and some of the things that will be coming up in conversations will be, um, how do Democrats combat this? Do they intentionally let these people lose by voting for Republicans? And frankly, that's the real response they should have. Um, or do they sit out? And I can only assume that some of them are going to do that, because these candidates are aligned too far. And it's not just New York City and Denver, folks. Stay tuned. I chronicle that in my column as well. Um, and CNBC host Joe Kernan had U.S. Senator Rochester. She's the junior senator from Delaware. She was on an interview with Joe Kernan last week after the New York State primary, and he asked her point blank, just tell me a place where socialism has worked, where it has benefited people. And she obfuscated and refused to answer and said, I'll have that for you when we talk next. And a nice escape for a U.S. Senator. But the harsh reality is there isn't a place where socialism has worked. I'm going to throw a quote here from the former chancellor and founder of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell. For anyone who knows Jerry Falwell, the dad back in the day, involved in Moral Majority, and would even be invited on a variety of cable shows to talk politics and whatnot. And he called socialism mutually shared poverty. And there's poverty for the working class. The only people who get rich off of socialism are the people who are in power, and they are going to skim from the trough for themselves. And but that's where we are. But I want to take a moment here and just kind of go back to a column I wrote not quite a month ago, almost, um, on character. And the column was generated by the events that happened in Texas and Maine. Texas had a runoff election in late May, and Ken Paxton became the nominee for U.S. Senate. And there were a lot of people who were warning Republicans, you don't want to vote for Paxton because he may not be able to win the general election. And Ken Paxton also has some character issues. He cheated on his wife. They are going through a divorce. Um, and there's been other public scandals connected to him. He did avoid impeachment a number of years ago. There were games being played by both the Republican majority in Austin as well as the Democrats, and they tried to set him up, and he overcame that. But Ken Paxton has a variety of character issues. And then you have the situation with Graham Plattner, now the U.S. Senate nominee against Susan Collins in Maine. And Graham Plattner has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He's tried to alter it over time to basically be able to say, no, I don't have that. But he did. He did have a Nazi tattoo on his chest. This is a guy who has abused women. This is a guy who had uh, an account on a sexual predator app that is very popular with predators, and how this guy became a nominee is a mystery. But it gets to the bigger issue of what we're doing in this country in relation to character. Character doesn't matter anymore. As long as someone has a few platitudes they put out on abortion and culture and taxes and foreign policy, boom, have support. And the church, the church in the United States of America has been complicit. We have dumbed down the standard as well because we don't look for character. As long as someone is saying a few platitudes, we get a seat at the table, boom, it's done. They have our vote. And a lot of this gets to the lesser of two evils issue. And uh, you aren't going to find that standard anywhere in Scripture. Nowhere is there any instruction in Scripture for Christians to take the lesser of two evils. Um, and and then we also get you know the argument that, well, th- this is the most tolerable option we have. And frankly, that really isn't a good standard either. And as I put in the story, and as I have said on this podcast many times, Exodus 18:21 is just one verse of multiple in Scripture that focus on setting a standard. And in Scripture, there's character standards for leaders, especially in the church. And I would argue it extends to public officials because Jethro tells Moses in Exodus 18:21, you want people who are able, capable. You want people who fear God, love the truth, and hate dishonest gain. Those are pretty four simple things. But unfortunately, a lot of times now in government, we get incompetence. We get bureaucracy, red tape, and lack of common sense over they're capable. They're doing this. They're getting this done. We get cans kicked down the road on reforming entitlements and all kinds of stuff. And I would argue the church in America has been complicit in dumbing down the standard that we have for candidates for office. And if we had a higher standard, if we were electing people of character, these democratic socialists wouldn't see the light of day. And the Democrats would have snuffed out the wolves at the gate and they wouldn't have been allowed into the barnyard. So, all of that. And there's going to be a couple links in the description of the podcast on that. Let's jump to immigration. So, yesterday, much to the chagrin of President Trump, the Supreme Court, in I believe it was a 6-3 decision, I believe it was Thomas Alito and Gorsuch, um, uh, the final vote, and it was they shot down the executive order on birthright citizenship. And I just want to make some comments here about how this administration, in its first year and a half, quickly approaching, has handled immigration. Now, when Trump came into office, after being reelected, or the non consecutive term he was elected to in 2024, um, we knew he was going to deport people. We knew we were going to see bad guys, people with really bad records, both in our country and the countries of origin, that these people were going to be, you're out of here. And what we tended to see after that was anyone who was here illegally. You heard stories of going onto farms and going into like Home Depots and a variety of other locations where illegals were working or located. And I have a take that's probably unpopular on the right, but I'm going to say it anyways. Anyone who is here, even illegally, who is playing by the rules and busting their hump to improve their lives and the lives of those in their family, leave them alone. Leave them alone. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, we should have focused on two other groups after these illegals that had come across the border, and we knew they had criminal records because they had committed crimes here, or they had a criminal record in their country of origin, and were showing signs that they were not changed individuals. I would have gone after the people here on visas from the CCP, because some of these people are agents of the Communist Party in Beijing, and they are here for purposes of undermining the American way of life and the American government. And we shouldn't be giving these people the time of day. And the other group that I would be going after is the Islamists. The Middle East Media Research Institute chronicles, quite well, I would add, the people who are in this country, imams, and frankly, even folks around the globe, but certainly even folks in the United States of America who are Muslims here, and they talk about death to America, and they talk about how we are here to change the system of government and all that other stuff. And if you are someone here talking like that, see ya. Bounce them out on their ear and go back to whatever poorly run Middle Eastern country you came from, or African country you came from. Those are my comments on immigration. And I want to say a few things about Iran, because we're stuck here in ceasefire and memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, despite the fact Iran has multiple times violated that ceasefire and violated the terms of the memorandum of understanding. And what's really interesting is in the last week or so, we have, because there are Iranian people in Iraq, neighboring country, who are basically agents of the Iranian regime. And the Iraqi government has been purging these people from their country. They have been rounding them up, and I don't know if they're going to be standing trial or what, but there is a purge in Iraq right now of people who are have ties to the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, there is another video that I've seen emerge of Iranians. Rice is now in a certain location, and these Iranians are there and they're just throwing it around. They're basically making the statement, you are not going to con us through our bellies. You are not going to con us with food. We want freedom and we don't care about food. What we care about is our freedom. And so those are a couple interesting developments that have been happening. And as Iran has been violating the terms of that agreement, um, we now have a situation where supposedly Trump is now in communication with Pete Hegseth, his national security advisor, and they're talking about potentially resuming the war. Why? Because you can't trust Iran. Duh. Some of us knew that in advance. Um, and this what makes what Marco Rubio did with Israel and Lebanon such a masterstroke. Um, Shortly after the memorandum of understanding, Marco Rubio was negotiating a three-country agreement between the U.S., Israel, and Lebanon. And of course, Lebanon is where Hezbollah is located. And that's one of the proxies of the Iranian regime. And Marco Rubio really did a very swift masterstroke after that very isolationist memorandum of understanding negotiated by, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and the vice president, J.D. Vance, um, saw the light of day. So some interesting things there, and I don't think things are done in Iran. I think we're going to be compelled to step in and resume things again. And the question will be at that point is how well has Iran rearmed? How well has China stepped in and rearmed them? How well has Russia stepped in and did some rearming of them as well? So that's uh, something to uh, that will be taking shape in the coming days, weeks, and months. The other key Supreme Court decision yesterday was the decision on trans females or trans males competing in female sports. And the court did the right thing in basically saying girls girls compete in girls sports, women compete in women's sports, and it was important in the fact that it was an issue going on in the culture, but really not a surprise that this is how the court landed. Um, and one last thing I'm going to share. It's a video that emerged last week. Just the setup for that. This is this. So Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, was in Buffalo, and she is from Buffalo. Um, she was at the new Highmark Stadium, where the Buffalo Bills will be doing their inaugural season this year, and it's a what $1 billion, $2 billion stadium or something like that, um, complete with some taxpayer funded or taxpayer money that went toward the stadium as well. And there is video of her at the event where uh, all of the union workers and a variety of others who are gathered, public officials, whatnot. And she's attempting to get this crowd going with a "Let's Go Buffalo" chant. And she fails twice. She fails twice. And it is perhaps the biggest indicator, public indicator in recent days of how unpopular this woman is. And if there is any justice in New York State, and it's hard to say that right now, Bruce Blakeman will be elected governor in November, but um, we'll see. But that's all I have for you this week. Again, I am dropping a column. Yes, it is on the Democratic Socialists of America involved in the Democratic Party. And there are going to be several links in the description to the podcast. I encourage you to catch those. And we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. If you like what you're listening here on this podcast, if you like what you're reading in my column, please share it. Or please subscribe. And until next time, happy 4th of July and God bless.